Welcome back to the Brahmin Word, and we are finishing up the life of Solomon this week by looking at the Book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is a form of poetry, but it's also this warning letter that we see from the preacher, who I believe is Solomon. So we will look at chapter 1 today, introduce this idea of the whole book, and then we will wrap it up on Thursday. So with that, turn with me to Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. We're going to do the whole chapter. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Now, this is mentioned not just here in verse 1, but also in verse 12. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. So there's a couple ideas here who this might be. Either one, it's Solomon because he is the son of David, and when he was the king in Jerusalem. So the other idea is that it could be an ancestor of David who is a king, whether it is Rehoboam, which would be David's grandson, or later on, because sometimes the word son really points to a not just the biological son or the immediate son of somebody, but could point to their ancestors. However, I think it is really based off of Solomon because of the word that is used for preacher. So the Hebrew word that's used here, kohelet, is actually pointing to, yes, it could be a preacher or a proclaimer, but it could also be a convener or a collector. And, well, a lot of the wisdom that we see with Solomon that we had talked about before was the fact that he would put a lot of things together that he spoke, a lot of things together that he wrote. In a way that he is a collector of wisdom. And so for me, I think based off of the son of David being the king of Jerusalem, but also being a collector or a preacher, points to Solomon. So I think that's why he is the author of this book. So let's dive into what he actually has to say. Verse 2. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. So let's stop there. First off, pretty depressing on the surface. It seems very woe is me. There's nothing good. There's nothing new. Everything just turns and turns and turns. There seems to be nothing out there that's worth living for. And in one case, the word vanity here is a good word to use because a lot of the times when we see the word vanity, what we think of is, well, it's just meaningless. There's nothing about it. And you could see that within the verses 2 through 11, this idea that there is nothing new, that everything is meaningless. The sun rises and sun goes down. It hastens to a place where it rises again. Everything everything just goes and goes and goes and goes. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. So what's the point? That could be the idea that you have. However, if you look at the original word that is there for vanity, not the way that we think about it in English, and especially in our context in the 21st century in America. But if we look at it, how it is written, and for the audience that it's written for, originally, the original manuscript, it's really fascinating. So the Hebrew word for vanity here, or vanity actually is hebel, which means a mist or a vapor or a mere breath. It appears 5 times in this verse and 29 other times in this whole entire book. So this idea of mist or vapor or a mere breath is very important to this book. Well, what are those things? Are they, in fact, meaningless in purpose? No. A mist or a vapor or a mere breath, they all mean things. If you and I didn't have a mere breath, we would suffocate. If we didn't have vapor or mist in our ecosystem, then there would be no rain cycle, there would be no water cycle. Mist and vapor, even though they're so tiny and can seem so purposeless, they actually do have a purpose in themselves. But what they do all have, a mere breath, purpose, or sorry, vapor or mist, what they do all have in common is the time frame that they exist. Very quick, very short. That is the point that Solomon is getting at here. Everything that he mentions here in verses 2 through 11 is short, is brief. If you blink, it is gone. If you are focused so solely on that thing, then you will miss the purpose that's behind it. Now, eventually, he gets to what that purpose is at the end of the book. But here, he's just trying to show that, look, all these things that we put so much just effort and time and our soul into, if it is not permanent, then what's the point? Then what good is it for? Because it's only just going to go away in a moment. And we'll see later on that our lives are very much like that. Well, verse 4, a generation goes and a generation comes. A generation's typically seen around 60 to 80 years. So if that's sometimes even 40. So if we're looking at the 40 to 80 years, to us, that means a lot. But it really just comes and goes. We talk all the time, especially around the end of the year that we are in here in December. Isn't it crazy that it's the end of the year? That, wow, time has gone by. Well, this is kind of what Solomon is getting at. And we see that continued on in verses 12 through 18. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. Well, who better to connect that to than Solomon, right? Continuing on verse 13, it is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is but a striving after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. And I think where he's getting at with this first vanity, so to speak, with wisdom, is even if you and I have all the right answers, all the knowledge that we could have about the world, it doesn't mean that we're going to live longer. It doesn't mean that those things that we value are going to last longer. Even if we have all the wisdom and take all the time to do that, it doesn't really, it all goes in a very quick way. In a very quick way. There we go. Good snap there for a second. But um, I think that's what he's getting at here. Even if you are given this crazy amount of wisdom like Solomon has, and yet you don't have the relationship with God that is eternal, then the earthly wisdom that you have been given, at some point, it will die because, well, you will die. You and I are not meant to be on this world in this world forever, and eventually we will go in some manner or fashion. And when that time comes, so does even things like wisdom. And so, therefore, yeah, that's it makes sense why so many people who are just out for knowledge and wisdom, even though that's a good thing to go after, but if that's the only thing that, the only purpose that they have, the only thing that they want, at the end of that, we see a lot of people become very, very sad over that. To end with this, Tom Brady had this very convicting, I would say, interview where he talks about how he has won multiple Super Bowls, where he has experienced triumph and victory in ways that he never thought he would. And yet, none of that matters because he sensed that there was still this hole within himself that was not being filled. Sadly, Tom did not make that connection to it being a lack of a relationship with Jesus Christ. But yet, that is kind of what we see here. But again, at the end of the book, he shows what really does matter. And so we will get to that on Thursday as we wrap up the life of Solomon. But I hope you are encouraged and see the importance of putting your trust in things that are eternal, and that being the person and work of Jesus Christ, which is the only thing that can save you and I, so that we do not live in just this Hebel world that is just only for a moment, but that we can focus on the eternity of spending eternity with Christ, which is only by his blood. And so, with that being said, thank you for spending time with me today with Robin Word, and I will see you on Thursday as well. Thanks.